Hey, welcome to our Discovering More series here at Peace Church. We follow along with our Sunday series and dive a little bit deeper into what is going on. So we launched a new series altogether this past week. Part of that was the world feels so divided and everything seems so divisive. So how can we help people see how we're all together in this thing we call life? And so we kicked off by talking to this week about being created together. Talking about creation, and one of the things that I realized, David, I've taught a lot about creation. It happens like with confirmation,
Sure.
Middle school, high school. You talk about creation all the time. I've never preached on it on a Sunday.
Oh, really?
Because I think it does require a bit of nuance, which I really want to make sure that I got across this past Sunday. I grew up going to a public school, with my biology textbook, talked about evolution and all the different things. And I think it's only gotten more so that way, where science is pretty settled on what it believes is the origin story and all that. And then Christians have this really difficult challenge ahead of them. Like, how do we hold together this Genesis 1, 7 days of creation with the kind of the mainstream evolutionary theory, dinosaurs 300 million years ago, and the Earth being 14 billion years old. Especially middle schoolers are really struggling with this because they want to be able to read their Bible and understand what their Bible says, and they've been hearing about dinosaurs in their little children's books and hundreds of millions of years ago. And how do they reconcile all this together?
Yeah, and most of my ministry has been with youth, so believe me, I've dealt with that question countless times. This is what they teach me in school, this is what they teach me at church, and they don't seem to mesh. And in fact, I think a lot of times in the schools and out in the culture, we get this idea, we're taught that science is the enemy of church and faith.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that to be true at all. In fact, if you look back in history, scientists have tended to be Christians, and Christians who believe in an order that God has created and just trying to understand what that order is like.
Well, science cannot exist without the Christian God. This is one of the things that I like to go back to, is to say, if you believe in Marduk and Tiamat, which I highlighted in this book, if you believe that a giant sea creature created everything, or there's millions of gods, or all these different things, like what holds you to believing that matter is constant, that time is measurable, that all these variables are under control at some level? And it's only if you believe in a God of order. The Bible says God is a God of order, and you believe that we have the ability to know God and to know deeper things about this world. We have to seat our ability to know somewhere,
right,
as people. And so it's only because of the Christian framework that we're even able to develop the sciences as we have them today. And that, you're exactly right. So many of the early scientists were monks or pastors or dedicated Christians. I forget who it was who said they're trying to think the thoughts of God after him, was their study of science. But so much has been advanced in the scientific realm of knowledge and thinking by Christians who saw these two things cohering. So as we take that approach, then, we should, I guess as Christians, we should not be approaching this from a place of worry or fear.
Right. Yeah. It's just this kind of a different point, but I remembered something that I was thinking about as you were sharing the message. And the idea of caring for the earth begins right for us as Christians, begins right with God, right? With putting us here and saying, hey, this is part of the job I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And you're doing this with me and for me, kind of, right? And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, well, why do people who don't believe in God care for the earth? And it seems to me it's really because we're worried about the future, right? Otherwise, you see people, they don't really care a whole lot unless they're worried about the future. But as Christians, we have a whole different understanding of it. We're not just worried about the future. We care about the earth because we've been created to be a part of this earth and to be connected with God and with the physical realm. And it's a blessing, actually. that we're caring for. I don't know, it's a little bit of a nuance to me, but I was thinking about that. We have a whole greater reason, not just our own self-preservation or the preservation for our kids and generations after us. But right here, right now, we have this great reason of caring for the earth.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and so as I approached my message and as I approached Genesis chapter 1, there's a lot of questions that come up like, are the days literal? Are the days non-literal? Did God create this earth with like the impression of being old? Does it actually just kind of give the spans of time, and it meshes perfectly with evolution? It's one of the things that we don't talk about a lot is that Catholicism has room for evolutionary theory built into it.
Is that right?
Doctrines. Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. Okay.
Not that I adhere to evolution. I believe that scientifically speaking, it's hard to imagine DNA. You peer into DNA, and for me, that's enough to be like, how can things get more complex when all we see is cancer? When we see genetic changes all the time, but they're never good.
Right.
And X-Men is kind of like, well, maybe X-Men, that would be the genetic mutations that are leading to, whatever.
Yeah.
The next.
But that's all fantasy that somebody made up.
Exactly.
But
what I like to say about Genesis chapter 1 is that it's controversial. It's supposed to be controversial.
Yeah.
And it should challenge us at a deep level.
Yeah.
And as it pertains to time specifically, I think that's where it's controversial for us, because we don't believe in sun gods and moon gods, and we don't believe in Tiamat or Marduk. We don't believe in all this crap anymore. Not that it's actually crap, but then, that's how we see it in the world today, right? All this fantasy stuff. No, but we do have this orientation toward time. We want to know. We have this orientation toward knowledge. And the two things that jump off the page when I read Genesis 1, the first is that humans were created last. And if humans are created last, that means God intended it from the beginning that we wouldn't know from experience. No human knows from experience how things went down in creation, those first 6 days or however many. Like, we all live by faith as we approach time. So humans were created last, so we had to live by that faith. But the other thing that I like to point out is, if we're talking about days, we measure days a certain way. And we measure days by the sun. And the sun wasn't created until day 4. So it enters in this question of like, how do we harmonize these things? And at some level, we cannot. We cannot harmonize them with our ability to understand. And so we have to live by faith as we approach the creation and say that God orders everything. God has ordered everything, and so we can know God and we can know His creation because of all the ways He works in the midst of it.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that is the main point of that creation account in Genesis, is we're not an accident. We didn't just kind of accidentally happen and evolve, and we're not a product of some warring factions up in the heavens that kind of a byproduct, which is what a lot of the old ancient stories were like. And we're not some kind of pawns by the gods who wanted to have fun, and there's a lot of other stories like that.
Yeah.
But we are created by God intentionally, and because He wants to have a relationship with us and love us.
Yeah, I like listening to astrophysicists. They're very interesting, and a couple of them they talk about this concept of that we're stardust. All of us are just cosmic stardust, and like the value that should give our lives. You look out at the stars and you see the stars, but you're just like the stars because you were meant. It's like, well,
that doesn't work for me.
Well, I can get behind it at some level. We just believe that we're not cosmic stardust. We believe that we're God's breath and dust.
Right. It doesn't get behind for me as far as making me feel great about myself.
Yeah.
Though, right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
But there's actual purpose there. Because God breathed that purpose into us. We're all trying to make meaning of our lives, and when you look at creation, you see meaning, you see design, you see beauty, and you see just all these things, and you're like, how did they get there? And if it's all by chance, they're not really there.
Right.
But we believe that there's an order giver. We believe that there's a purpose giver. We believe that there's a designer and an artist behind the beauty we see.
Yeah. And then tying into the altogether theme, every time I look at another human being, that's a person who has had the breath of life of God breathed into them, and has been created especially with God in His image, as we are taught. No matter how bad I might think that person is, I need to remember that person has been created by God in His image, and God still loves and cares for that person. Therefore, I need to love and care for that person, no matter how at odds I might be with that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'd love to hear if you have questions about creation or how Genesis works itself together with science and all this. We'd love to be able to address any of those things that you might be interested in. So please feel free, make a comment on this video, reach out to, is it info@mypeacechurch.com?
Yeah, we love to talk about those things, even if we don't have the answers, right? Because we don't know. But we can talk about them and bring up those questions and concerns. We're not afraid of them.
Yeah. So we're all held together. We're all created together, and what a blessing we get to live in such a beautiful place. We hope that you take some time, maybe unplug from YouTube or whatever, and get out in creation a little bit and just celebrate what God has done for us in this beautiful world in which He's placed us. Thanks for watching along and being part of our Discovering More. Have a great day.